We're here today to have a conversation around the origin story of Cybersettle, a fintech SaaS company that digitizes financial negotiation and settlement. My name is Vinodh Swaminathan. I am the president and CEO of Cybersettle. I'm delighted to have with me today Charlie Brofman, who was the founder of Cybersettle and currently the chairman of the board, and Stephen Fink, who is an independent director on the board of Cybersettle. Charlie, Stephen, welcome to the conversation today. Glad you guys could make some time to talk about this.
Hey, great to see you, Vinodh.
Fantastic. Steve, I'm going to start with you. You recently joined the board of Cybersettle as one of our independent directors. If you could give us a little bit of your professional background and sort of dive a little bit into what got you interested in serving as a director on the Cybersettle board.
Sure. So my background is essentially in trial litigation, personal injury, medical malpractice, class actions, and mass torts. Done a lot of work in those areas from the inception of cases up through trials. And both myself and my firm have tried a number of cases. But as I was seeing my process in terms of the kinds of cases that I handle, when I saw the product, and I know that we're going to get into really all the avenues that Cybersettle can provide, but when I saw what was available, I saw there was a real need, there was a real chasm for lawyers who needed another tool to get their cases resolved in a way short of trial. That was a constant concern and complaint that I heard from a number of colleagues, some of the younger attorneys in different types of cases, and I was looking for a way to perhaps help some of these other lawyers as well bring their cases to a close.
That's fantastic. Now, Charlie, you were the original troublemaker, if I can describe you that way. Talk to us a little bit about how this all got started. Fascinating story from what I've heard. I'd love our audience to kind of get a feel for that as well.
Yes. So, like Steve, I started my career as a trial attorney. I was actually a prosecutor in the Bronx DA's office for just under 5 years back in the 80s, and then went into private practice doing all sorts of trial work, from criminal defense work through personal injury. I didn't do medical malpractice. I actually sent those cases to Steve, believe it or not. And but it was a trial attorney, picked juries, tried cases to completion, started them, the whole gamut. And back in the mid 90s, it really occurred to me that the system was broken. I became extremely frustrated by the time and the expense that it took to resolve cases. One of the studies that we did back in the early 2000s showed that 97.55% of all the cases filed in the universe of cases settled before trial. Only 2.45% ever went to trial, and of that, only 50% went to verdict. And what does that mean? That means that in 98.5% of all the cases, everybody gets realistic at some point. And the question becomes, what's the barrier to that happening? Well, in negotiation, and using insurance companies and plaintiffs' lawyers as an example, if an insurance company wants to pay $50,000 on a case, they're going to offer $20,000. If a plaintiff's attorney is willing to settle for $50,000, he's going to demand $100,000. So at 100 and at 20, the delta is so wide, there's no way to resolve it. But if a lawyer were to say, hey, I want 60, and the insurance company said, I'm willing to pay 50, well, that delta is rather small. And that can resolve, bridged that gap, which we do all the time in cases. So how do you get there? And the original concept, which really came out of a case. I was on a case with my adversary, and I was representing the defendant actually at the time, and we were so far apart and we were in court, and he said, look, write down on a piece of paper what you're really willing to pay. I'll write down what I'm really willing to take. We're going to hand it to the court clerk. He's going to agree not to show us our numbers. But if we're close, he's going to give us a thumbs up. And if we're not close, we're going to get a thumbs down. But if we both are fair and reasonable, this case, we both know where this case is going to settle. And I said, fine, as long as you can't see my number, then I'm willing to do that. And we wrote down our numbers, gave it to the court clerk. He looked at the two numbers, gave us a thumbs up. We were $1,000 apart. We split the difference. Bang, case is over, settled. Cybersettle. Well, how do you do that? And that happened in 1995. How do you do that hundreds of thousands of times a day? Because you can't hire independent people to give them pieces of paper. I mean, it just doesn't work. How do you do it when your adversary is in California and you're in New York? How do you do those things? And with the advent of the internet, it became obvious to me what the solution was. And this is back in 1998. The solution was to put a black box in cyberspace where plaintiffs and defendants could submit offers and demands in the blind, nobody knowing what their numbers were unless the cases settled. And if the case settled, well, of course, then you know where everybody is because that's just part of the settlement program. But if the case didn't settle, you were not harmed by the negotiation process. And that's an essential element to what we do, that lawyers like Steve could put in a demand, a realistic demand. And if the case didn't settle, he doesn't have to worry that his demand, maybe it was $1 million, would come back and haunt him. The insurance company could go back to court and say, my demand's $2 million. And no one could say, well, you said $1 million yesterday. And that was the key to what we did. And the first code that we wrote was in 1998. It was written in a very archaic language called CoFusion. In those days, that was state of the art. And we settled the first case online in August of 1998 for a little over $11,000. It was an AIG case, believe it or not. And within 10 years, we had done 200,000 transactions using this very simple but complicated process. Simple to use, complicated on how it works.
Charlie, I've heard you talk about, how the time is now, given the 20-year journey and the rich history of clients that you've served, lots of different industries. Cybersettle has actually kind of evolved to, where it is today. Give us a little bit of, what you see as you look ahead, right? Given we're now in 2024, right? Cybersettle's, like I said, got a rich history of delivering value to clients. Between you and your role as the chairman of the board, Steve, you were fantastic in articulating, right, the real value that you see, right, in your own professional life that kind of got you excited to join the board and be part of our journey. Charlie, what do you see ahead? And, share with us some of the excitement that, you feel for where we're headed as a company.
In 1998, when we introduced the first version of Cybersettle, and for a 10-year period thereafter, remember, the internet was not yet fully accepted as a methodology to do business. Less than 10% of the claims handlers and insurance companies had internet access. Less than 10% of the lawyers had internet access. That's 1999, 2000. Fast forward to today. If you're not on the internet, you're not in business. It's really as simple as that. And insurance companies have now adopted the internet as a way of negotiating and communicating with their policyholders and with their and third-party claimants. In fact, if you want to file a claim today with an insurance company, you got to do it online. They don't take paper claims. Same thing with the medical community. 20 years ago, you got these bills in the mail. Today, everything is done by email. Everything is done by internet. And the general public has now accepted the internet as an essential element for conducting business. With the advent of the pandemic, this terrible experience that we all had back in 2020, that shut down our economy for almost 2 years, the backlog of cases in the court system just grew and grew and grew, to the point where, the concept of trying to be able to get a trial was difficult. I mean, they're still trying to, move cases from 2020, and it's 2024. And so, when the pandemic lifted, it became very clear to me that Cybersettle had arrived. It was an invention that was maybe 20 years ahead of its time, but it had arrived now. And for me, as the founder and as the chairman, my job was to go out and assemble a team that understood artificial intelligence, understood the various nuances in doing business on the internet, understood HIPAA and medical claims, understood all that, understood the psychology of trial attorneys and what they were looking for in terms of being able to do this. And that's what I did. Vinodh, we hired you as the CEO for that one reason. You understand all this. I invented something, but I also understood that I needed a team that was going to be able to propel it forward. And I am very excited about the future and what we have going on now. You're on mute, Vinodh.
Thank you. Steve, I'm going to turn to you now. You, as you introduced yourself, you described your professional life today. So, wearing your, lawyer hat, you sit on the other side of these transactions. One of the things that, I always get asked about is, hold on, we know how lawyers work. They like to bill for everything. How can you deal with a situation where, you're sort of shortening, right, the whole cycle? Is that counterintuitive to the legal community, who's one of the big users of the Cybersettle system? Why don't you share sort of your perspectives on, where the legal community is today and how this Cybersettle value proposition actually plays into some of what you're trying to do?
Well, I think all the studies and all the data that has come out has indicated that a fair and quick resolution is going to benefit everybody in the process, whether it's the individual that's injured, whether it's the defendant, whether it's the plaintiff or defense lawyers, or the insurance company and the legal system. The burden that is placed on everyone in that process is huge. And from the plaintiff's perspective, clients need their money. They need to get back to their normal life as fully and as quickly as possible. A speedy resolution will help that. The plaintiff's lawyers only generate an income when there is a resolution. So in terms of dragging the process out, and defense lawyers who bill by the hour want to focus on those cases that warrant their attention, that deserve the heavy lift internally. Many of these cases could be resolved if we could just bring everybody to the table and have a real, open, honest, but double-blind discussion on that. And that's what this system provides. And it's been shown, studies, independent studies, not on one side of the V or the other, have shown the benefits that come to the insurance company because it costs them a significant amount of money to carry a case, to pay the lawyers, to drag it on, to go back to court. This is something that can very much benefit them as well. And they're understanding that. They're processing and digesting the data, and they're appreciating that, which is why, as Charlie can elaborate, why these insurance companies are now getting involved and actively participating in the program.
No, it's fantastic. Look, I think recognizing that this capability not only obviously benefits, right, in the case of insurance, as an example, the insurance company themselves, right, it saves cost, time, and effort that it takes for them to, settle some of these claims. Steve, it's fascinating to hear that even on the other side of the table, This is a very valuable digital experience and productivity tool that lawyers are beginning to appreciate, right, on the value proposition. Steve, you did, when you joined the board, the insurance industry, sort of the settlement process involved, right, as lawyers got involved in this, that was a no-brainer. It was easy for you to sort of get your head around. But if I understand this correctly, some of the newer opportunities and the applications outside of sort of your daily life, if you will, some of the things you've heard about, healthcare, e-commerce, the returns business. I've heard you get really excited about those kinds of opportunities as you sort of wear your, director hat on the board. Do you want to share some of that, passion that, I've heard you articulate?
Absolutely. So one of the things, as being a lawyer, we deal with negotiations. We deal, although I don't like to present it as such, but people coin it as an adversarial process. I've been very fortunate to have some very good success by trying, just in terms of personally breaking down any adversarial relationship. But people come to me all the time, either as a professional or just through my general relationships, because there's constant differences of opinions when it comes to financial matters, whether it be the purchase of a house, that how much should the price pay versus the sale price, when it's the leasing of a vehicle, when it's paying a medical bill, where someone goes to a hospital and they're charged X dollars and the insurance company covers Y, and then there's a difference, and then there's a copay. There are so many things that if a person just took a closer look at their own lives, where they're in a frequent negotiation or discussion as to what I should pay, what is a fair price, and whatnot. People talk all the time in terms of purchasing products now with Amazon and all these other companies that provide various things. And sometimes we see, and I think Charlie can also elaborate very, very well, when we heard about what happens if the product is not what we ordered, or what happens if the product is defective. How do we resolve that? How is that addressed? What Cybersettle can now do is create a forum, an efficient forum, a very easy process where you don't have to be involved back and forth with phone calls and emails. You don't have to go down to small claims court. You don't have to get on the phone and try to get someone on the phone and have your blood pressure raise 50 points. You can do it in a simple, professional way. And it's going to, I think, I really strongly believe, because I've seen how effective it's been already, this is going to change significantly the way people transact business.
Well, that's fantastic. Charlie, do you want to add to that? Because I know you're really excited about a couple of these interesting use cases that we're pursuing now.
The biggest frustration that I have just as a consumer is trying to get somebody on the telephone. Try it. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for that. Sorry, we're going to put you on hold. I mean, when you talk to insurance companies, they're frustrated they can't get a hold of plaintiffs' lawyers. Plaintiffs' lawyers say they're frustrated they can't get a hold of adjusters. Everybody's got the same frustration. And consumers really are not, they're really not confrontational people. As lawyers, we're trained to be negotiators. We're trained in, Steve doesn't like to use the word adversarial, but in an adversarial relationship, we don't take it personally. We're trained in it. We don't feel threatened by it. Most consumers feel threatened by that process. And this allows people to reach a resolution without feeling threatened, without having to, as Steve mentioned, go to small claims court in order to solve it and sit there all night long. People have lives. You get an offer on a case at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can go on Cybersettle at 10:30 at night and settle the case. One of the ways that I knew that we had made it was back in the early 2000s, right after the turn of the millennium in 2000, January 1, 2000, cases settled at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I went, we made it. Now, this is proof that the concept works. An offer had been put in 3 weeks earlier, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, after the new year had struck, a lawyer went on and settled the case. And that's what it's all about. We have some really interesting use cases that we're looking at, besides medical resolution of medical bills. People want to solve they want to pay their doctors. They want to pay their dentists. They want to solve that problem. That's a very exciting use case because hospitals are drowning and medical providers are drowning in accounts receivable that they can't collect. They don't know how to collect. It's in the trillions of dollars. The return of goods. How do you negotiate to return something? I got a widget. I ordered it from Home Depot, and it's got a dent in it. And I'd like to keep it, but you know what? I want to get some money back for the dent. I'm okay keeping the dent in. I'm okay. It's not the color that I thought it was going to be. Whatever the reason is, the ability to negotiate that with the company in a fair and easy manner is huge. And that is a use case that we are very excited about because the return of goods, that's a $1 trillion problem now in our economy, literally $1 trillion problem. And we think we've come up with a major solution to that problem.
Oh, that's fantastic. Steve, coming back to you, 3 years from now, what are you most excited about Cybersettle, as you look sort of into that time horizon?
If people on both sides, the plaintiffs, insurance companies, the lawyers, everyone involved, are going to be willing to accept, and I know when there's change, it comes slowly, and with technology, a lot of people, my generation and beyond, we didn't grow up with a lot of this technology. If people are willing and people are receptive, it's going to radically change the way a number of businesses function on a daily basis.
As I work with the both of you and with the team here at Cybersettle, the prospect of using this capability and this platform, to really play a vital role in productivity improvements and new digital experiences for people, across $3 trillion of annual transactions in the US alone that are negotiated and settled, right? These are, as both of you alluded to earlier, lots of these kinds of activity happening around us in our everyday life. I'm really excited at the prospect of, bringing these new experiences into such a large market where there are hundreds of millions of attempts to negotiate and settle. Very excited at the prospect of doing this. Charlie, you and I have connections into, the Asian market and different cultures where haggling and negotiation is a blood sport, and we're going to digitize that. So the prospect of applying Cybersettle and its capabilities, as you both rightly alluded to everyday experiences we all go through, we're very excited at the possibility, and we love the progress that we're making already. Thank you both for making the time today. Charlie, thank you for sharing the origin story. Steve, fantastic to hear, your unique perspective given the role you play in the market and also on the board of this exciting company. Appreciate you all sharing those insights, and hope to talk to you all soon again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much, and best of luck to everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinodh.